The Indiana Fever dropped ticket prices to $5, and somehow that still wasn't enough to fill the arena. Think about how crazy that sounds for a second. This is a team with Caitlin Clark, arguably the biggest draw in women's basketball, maybe even the biggest overall star the WNBA has seen in years, and fans still left thousands of seats empty. That's not normal, and honestly, it says something much bigger than people simply losing interest in basketball. Fans are still watching Caitlin Clark. The television ratings prove it. The social media numbers prove it. The highlight clips explode online every single night she plays. But what's happening right now in Indiana feels like fans sending a direct message to the organization itself. Because this isn't a Caitlin Clark problem. This is an Indiana Fever problem. On May 15th, the Fever hosted the Washington Mystics inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse, a building that holds more than 17,000 people. Yet, nearly 2,000 seats remained unsold by game time, even after ticket prices crashed down to just $5. $5. You can barely buy coffee and a snack for that in most places right now. The Fever even added promotions, lowered merchandise prices, and reportedly included free hot dogs with certain purchases. And still, fans didn't fully show up. That matters. Because when Caitlin Clark entered the league in 2024, Indiana instantly became one of the hottest tickets in all of basketball. Not just women's basketball, basketball overall, Nasensign and Digi. Fans traveled from different states just to watch her play. Resale ticket prices skyrocketed. Every Fever home game felt like an event. The energy inside that building completely changed once Clark arrived. And honestly, even during stretches where Clark dealt with injuries or the team struggled, the excitement usually stayed strong. So the fact that attendance has suddenly started slipping while Clark herself is still producing massive performances should absolutely concern the Fever front office, especially after what happened against Washington. Because Clark didn't struggle that night. She didn't disappear. She didn't have an off game. She almost single-handedly dragged Indiana back from disaster. The Fever were down 14 points in the fourth quarter, and Caitlin Clark suddenly exploded. She buried 5 three-pointers in the fourth quarter alone, turning what looked like a dead game into complete chaos. Every time Indiana needed momentum, Clark delivered another shot. Then came the moment that completely shook the arena. With just seconds left in regulation, Clark got the ball after a clean handoff action and drilled a game-tying three-pointer to force overtime. The crowd erupted. The arena went insane. It was one of those superstar moments that instantly floods social media. And yet somehow, even with that kind of performance happening live, thousands of seats had still gone unsold. That's why this conversation has become so serious around Indiana. Fans are not turning against Caitlin Clark. They're turning against the organization around her. Because people watching this team every night see the same issues repeating over and over again. The biggest concern starts with roster construction. Indiana's problems inside the paint were completely exposed against Washington. The Mystics scored 58 points in the paint compared to just 28 for the Fever. That's a brutal difference, especially in a game where Indiana desperately needed defensive resistance near the rim. And once Aaliyah Boston went down with an injury during the third quarter, things completely unraveled defensively. That moment changed everything. Boston is basically the anchor holding Indiana's interior defense together. She contests shots, rotates properly, protects the rim, and gives the Fever physical presence inside. Without her, the entire structure of Indiana's defense suddenly looked vulnerable. Washington immediately attacked that weakness. Kiki Iriafen dominated physically. Shakira Austin controlled possessions inside. Sonia Citron exploded offensively. The Mystics repeatedly attacked the paint because Indiana simply had no reliable answer once Boston left the floor. And honestly, that's where fans are directing most of their frustration toward the front office. Because this problem didn't appear randomly during the game. People were already worried about Indiana's front court depth before the season even started. Fans spent the offseason asking whether the Fever had added enough size, rim protection, and defensive toughness around Boston. Many supporters felt the roster still lacked another legitimate interior defender who could survive against physical front courts. Then the exact scenario fans feared happened in real time. Boston got hurt, and suddenly Indiana had no defensive stability inside. That's why the criticism aimed toward the front office has become so loud recently. People are questioning whether management truly built a balanced roster around Clark and Boston, or simply assumed star power alone would cover the weaknesses. And then there's the coaching conversation. That debate has become even more intense. Stephanie White continues dividing the fan base because many supporters feel her offensive system does not fully maximize Caitlin Clark's strengths late in games. Against Washington, Clark completely took over the fourth quarter. She erased a massive deficit almost by herself. herself, forcing overtime through elite shot making and aggressive offensive control. But once overtime started, many fans felt Indiana shifted away from what was actually working. Instead of continuing to fully center the offense around Clark's momentum, the ball repeatedly ended up elsewhere. Kelsey Mitchell finished with 24 points, but she needed 25 shot attempts to get there and finished with 0 assists and 0 rebounds. Meanwhile, Clark was clearly the most dangerous player on the floor offensively. That disconnect is what keeps frustrating Fever fans. They watch Clark completely change games with pace, spacing, shooting gravity, and playmaking, but then they see stretches where the offense suddenly slows down or shifts away from her hands during critical moments. And fans notice everything now? This is not a casual basketball audience anymore. Caitlin Clark brought millions of highly engaged viewers into the WNBA. These fans study possessions, rotations, late game decisions, efficiency numbers, and coaching adjustments. They break down film clips online. They debate offensive systems on social media every night. So, when Clark catches fire and then the offense moves away from her during key moments, people immediately react. That reaction becomes even stronger when the Fever lose games they probably should win. Now, to be fair, Stephanie White clearly believes in balanced offense and multiple creators sharing responsibilities. Philosophically, that approach makes sense for many teams. But Caitlin Clark is not a normal player. That's the key difference. Generational offensive talents often require systems built specifically around maximizing what they do best. Clark thrives with pace, pick-and-roll freedom, deep shooting opportunities, transition offense, and constant involvement as a primary decision-maker. When Indiana leans fully into that identity, the offense suddenly looks dangerous. When they pull away from it, fans instantly feel the difference. And that's why the empty seats matter so much. Because the television audience proves basketball fans still care deeply about Clark. WNBA highlight videos featuring Clark continue generating massive views compared to most other content around the league. People are still tuning in every single game. They just aren't spending money to experience it live at the same level anymore. That's a dangerous sign for any organization. Low attendance with low interest is one thing. That usually means fans stopped caring entirely. But low attendance while social media engagement, television ratings, and online discussion remain huge. That usually means fans still love the player, but have become frustrated with the product surrounding that player. And right now, that's exactly what appears to be happening in Indiana. The Fever still have enormous potential. That part hasn't changed. Caitlin Clark looks capable of becoming an MVP-level superstar. Aaliyah Boston remains one of the best young frontcourt players in the league. Sophie Cunningham brings toughness and energy. Lexi Hull continues playing important defensive minutes. The foundation exists, but fans clearly want the organization to stop pretending the roster has no major flaws. They want another legitimate rim protector added to support Boston. They want better late-game offensive decision-making. They want the offense flowing through Clark consistently when games are on the line. Most importantly, they want honesty from the organization about what still needs fixing. Because right now, many supporters feel like they are watching one of the most exciting basketball talents in the world carrying an imperfect structure around her every night. And despite all the frustration, Clark herself continues delivering. That's what makes the situation even more fascinating. Even with defensive breakdowns, roster concerns, overtime struggles, and coaching criticism surrounding the team, Clark keeps producing superstar moments that dominate sports headlines. Against Washington, she literally rescued Indiana from collapse with one of the best fourth-quarter shooting performances of the season. 5 threes in one quarter, a game-tying bomb under pressure, a national audience watching every second. And somehow the conversation afterward still centered around why the organization feels disconnected from its own fan base. That's where things stand right now with the Indiana Fever. The fans still believe in Caitlin Clark. They absolutely believe in her. What they no longer fully trust is whether the organization around her knows how to maximize what they have before wasting a championship window that feels very real if handled correctly. And honestly, until the Fever start addressing those concerns more aggressively, those empty seats are probably going to remain part of the conversation no matter how many unbelievable shots Caitlin Clark hits.